Salute, BookTube. Welcome to my channel. Thank you for being here. I apologize, I haven't been posting as much as I would like. Two reasons for that. The first one is Christmas. I don't want to flood your Christmas TV to be watched uh, backlog. Again, I don't celebrate Christmas because I'm firmly in the Islamic world, and Christmas is just another day. So I don't. I just didn't know if it was appropriate. People told me in the comments it's fine, but I don't know. I thought I'd vanish for a little bit. But the second reason was I got a little bit sick over the last couple of days. It's actually been a bit cold here. And for those of you who are new to my channel, here is the United Arab Emirates, a small country in the Middle East, which doesn't have the snow and the cold that's associated with Christmas in northern climes or in North American climes. So it got a bit colder. It actually rained, which is a big deal here in the desert. When it rains, it's a happy time because water is life in the desert. But it got a bit cold. I got a bit cold. I got a bit sick. So I wasn't feeling 100% to film. So hopefully, thankfully, I'm better and I'm filming right now. And I thought what I would do in this video here is talk about my 2026 reading plans. Yes, I've been sick, but I've been watching a lot of BookTube, and I see a lot of channels discussing what they want to do in 2026, what they want to read, reading goals. It's a fresh start. It's definitely a fresh start for me. So I'm looking forward to the new year, looking forward to some more BookTube action, and I hope you will join me in this new journey in this new year. So to discuss what I'll be reading, what I'll be doing for 2026, I think the first thing I want to highlight is a reading event that is quite popular on BookTube, at least a certain segment of BookTube, but it's open for everyone who would like to do it. The event is a year-long event, and it's called Historathon. I've been participating in Historathons since before I even had a BookTube channel. Participate means I would follow the reading prompts, the reading guidelines for Historathon, but I wasn't very active. There's a Discord server that is used by the creators of Historathon. I've never been involved in Discord, but I think 2026 will be different. I will actually join the Discord and try to participate. The only one issue I have with Discord is, again, I'm in the Middle East. Most of these channels are North American, maybe British or European based. So maybe time differences might be an issue, but hopefully I can work around that. More about the Discord later. I just wanted to discuss what Historathon actually is, because I actually participated last year and I spoke about it in my videos throughout 2025, or at least halfway. That's when I started my channel in May 2025. I was discussing Historathon, but I was a very lazy booktuber. I just dismissed it. I said, there's Historathon. If you're interested, just type Historathon and you'll find it. But that's not right, because Historathon was actually created and through a lot of hard work and effort by a bunch of booktube hosts who run Historathon and take time from their busy schedules to organize Historathon. And I thought this is the right time to give them a shout out. But first, let me just discuss what Historathon is, and then I'll tell you who are the hosts, the creators, etc. So Historathon, again, is a year-long event. It's divided into 4 quarters throughout the year. So 3 months, January to March, and then April to June, and then July to October to September, and then the last quarter is October, November, December. And then these quarters are also divided into historical eras where you're encouraged to read a book about a nonfiction history of that era. So the first quarter, January to March, quarter 1, is from the beginning of time to 500 AD. So mostly ancient history. Whatever you want to read for ancient history, big selection of books there. Quarter 2, which is April to June, is the year 500 to the year 1500 AD or CE. Again, that's mostly the Middle Ages up into the Renaissance, if we're using the Western timeline of history. that era is also the golden age of Islam in the Middle East. So there's a lot of books to read there, and I'm not even discussing Indian or African or East Asian, Chinese history, etc. But big selection there. Quarter three, which is July to September, is the year 1500 to 1820. So this is a lot of the Renaissance, the dominance of Europe, mostly, if you're, again, looking at Western history. But again, as the creators of Historathon said, it's not Western history, it's read any history, just following the timetable as per the quarters. And then the last quarter is October to December, quarter four, and that's where you read anything from 1820 to the present. So that's mostly the modern era as we know it. So that's Historathon in a nutshell. I'm always a proponent of Historathon because I am mostly a nonfiction, mostly a history reader. So I'm always excited to take part in Historathon. And again, with the Discord server, I think I'm going to join. I haven't joined, but I will shortly, and I hope to get more involved throughout 2026. Just to well, before I show you what I'm going to read for Historathon quarter one, I won't go into quarter two, three, and four. It's too early for that. I've got some ideas for quarter one, but before I do, I just wanted to give a shout out, a much needed shout out to the creators of this venerable booktube event. The creator of Historathon was Vin, a channel called Reverend Reads. Vin is, I believe, out of Connecticut in the United States. He's a busy teacher, father, etc. But he was sitting one day and said, I've got a lot of history books I want to read, and I want to read it in a kind of systematic way. So he just one day invented Historathon, and here we are. I think they're in their fourth iteration, their fourth anniversary of Historathon. So congratulations to that. Looking forward to the 2026 edition. Vin has already posted the video. He's described Historathon much better than I can. I encourage you to watch the video. I'll link to it in the description below, and I'll link to his channel. You should check it out. The second co-host of Historathon is a channel called John David, aka Nicholas of Otricor. He also made a video. Perhaps I'll also link that video, also describing what Historathon is. He's always been a prime mover in Historathon, a big proponent of it, another big history booktuber, just like Vin at Reverend Reads. So do check out his video announcing Historathon as well. Another co-host is a channel called Bill Rutenberg. Another channel I've been watching. I've been watching BookTube for a long time. I just started this BookTube channel this year, but I've been watching for a long time. And Bill Rutenberg, I've been watching for a long time. He's a booktuber out of I think it's Iowa, and he's a teacher as well and a father as well. Another busy man, but he takes time to do BookTube and to do Historathon and to participate in Historathon. He reads a lot of history, he reads a lot, but I think his specialty is the Civil War, the American Civil War, which is a subject. I like to say that I'm a prolific history reader, but the Civil War, the American Civil War, for people who are outside the United States is a little bit difficult to grasp. Do you know of any non-American who's written about the Civil War? I think it's a very little amount of people. It's a very American event. I'll talk more about the Civil War because it's coming up, but Bill Rutenberg is a specialist. He's a prolific Civil War reading buff, and you should check out his channel as well. The other co-host is Justin at Triumphal Reads, another prolific booktuber, longtime booktuber, early booktuber, mostly a history reader, but he also reads a lot of nature books, a lot of science books. He reads a lot of philosophy. He reads a lot, and he's also he's got a full-time job. I think he's a librarian now at his local library. I think he's from a small town in Maine, in the northeast of the United States, and also I think he's recently a new father, so he's really busy, but he's still co-hosting Historathon. I'll link to his channel below. And then the final host is the one channel that I'm not too aware of. I haven't come across her before, but I've seen her name on the Historathon hosts list, and I'm looking forward to subscribing to her because if she's on Historathon, I'm interested and I'll subscribe. So I will subscribe to her. I don't know her name, but the channel is called Rainer Reads Stuff. Is Rainer her name? I'm not sure. I don't know too much about her, but I will link to her channel below. You should check out all of them. Although only the first two have made announcement video for Historathon so far, I'm sure the rest will talk about Historathon in the very near future. So with the list of the hosts and co-hosts of Historathon, I just wanted to show you some of the books that I will be reading for quarter one. Now again, remember quarter one is the beginning of time until 500 AD or CE, whichever you prefer. And for me, what I want to do for this quarter one is stick to a specific... This might not be a good thing because you start reading too many books about the same subject, but hopefully I can stay engaged. The historical people or historical era I want to discuss is the Phoenicians. This book is a short history of, it's an IB Tauris, very academic publication, a publishing house. It's a short history of series, and it's by Mark Woolmer. So the Phoenicians, I chose the Phoenicians. I've got a bunch of books about the Phoenicians. I don't have space in my library. I've got about 6 or 7 books about the Phoenicians. I don't need 6 or 7 books, so Historathon's the perfect, quarter one Historathon is the perfect time to sort of read these books and then see the ones I want to keep, and if I don't want to keep any, I can cull them, get rid of them, make more space in my library. But I chose to do the Phoenicians because A, I have a lot of books about them and I need to cut it down, but also because they're very fascinating. The Phoenicians were an ancient people who lived... They began their origin, and I think this book discusses their origin mostly, is in the Eastern Mediterranean, specifically in the country that we now know today as Lebanon. And they were sea peoples. They were very maritime focused. They weren't farmers as such. They weren't a land power. They were a great sea power. And that sea power allowed them to expand throughout the Mediterranean. Before the Greeks, during the Greek era, and they were also very large, as we'll see with the Romans, although the Romans ultimately defeated them. So they spread from their base in Lebanon. They went all through North Africa. They reached France, Spain. There are rumors they reached all the way to the UK, England, and even Iceland. But they were also big in Italy and parts of Greece, Sicily, etc. They had a capital in Carthage. We'll get to Carthage. But one thing, you'll see a lot of the books about Phoenicia are quite small, and there's a reason for that. The Phoenicians, unlike the Romans, unlike the Greeks, unlike the ancient Egyptians, unlike the Babylonians and the Assyrians and all the other ancient civilizations of the Near East, we have very little artifacts of the Phoenicians. Very little. For some reason, well, there is one reason. The original Phoenicians in Lebanon, just through destruction, etc., we don't have a lot of artifacts. And then their major capital at Carthage, their later capital in Carthage, was completely destroyed by the Romans. When the Romans were expanding throughout Rome, they reached the Mediterranean. They were becoming a Mediterranean power, and they butted up against the Phoenicians, and there was only room for one of them. They had the Great War, the Punic Wars, which we'll see a little bit later. Spoiler alert, the Romans were victorious. They completely destroyed the Phoenician capital of Carthage. They eliminated Phoenician culture, and with it, their artifacts. So we have very little artifact, very little archaeology about them, but fascinating people. They were famous for, if you know the story of, what was her name? Europa, the goddess Europa, who was a Phoenician queen, who the Minotaur from Crete took from Lebanon, brought her to Europe, and that's where European civilization began. That's the story among the Greeks, the Mycenaean Greeks, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me, but Also, we know that the alphabet, the Greek alphabet, came from the Phoenicians. The alphabet, as we know it, alpha, beta, in English and a lot of languages, Latin languages, Anglo-Saxon languages, even the Arabic language has that alpha, beta start, and that was the Phoenicians. So very fascinating people. So this is the first book. Maybe this is like a good introduction to start with. I haven't this determined the order I'm going to read these, but I've got 3 months in the first quarter of Historathon to read them, so I'll decide which ones I'll read for January, February, March. Probably in January. This is another good one, not a very attractive cover, but it looks like it's a nice introduction. Although the first book focused on the Phoenicians, this is much more about Carthage. This is Carthage, a history, and the author is, sorry about the glare, the author is B.H. Warmington. This looks like an older book, just feels like an older book. Yeah, 1960, revised in 1969. Oh, and then this is a 1993 edition, so old, but if it was renewed 30 years later, it must be a good one. Again, the Phoenicians began in Lebanon, but they spread throughout the Mediterranean. They had the Punic Phoenician capital. Their main city was in Carthage, which is in present-day Tunisia, not very far from Sicily, from Italy. Of course, now completely destroyed because of the Romans. But again, a small book because we know very little. We have very little archaeological evidence. So another book discussing specifically the Punic Wars, the wars between the Carthaginians and the Romans for the mastery of the Mediterranean. Again, spoiler alert, the Romans were the victorious ones, but the history was the wars, the Punic Wars, the wars between Rome and Carthage. We have a lot of evidence because the Romans wrote a lot about it, and we have a lot of Roman evidence. So here are just 3 books. I don't know where to start. We'll start with this one, Richard Miles, Carthage Must Be Destroyed. The subtitle is The Rise and Fall of an Ancient Civilization. That's the author. They're quite young, although this is probably an older book. When is this book from? Let's check really quickly. 2010. So, yeah, kind of old. But I don't know in the last 15 years, 16 years, if there's been much new findings about Carthage or about the Carthaginian or the Phoenicians in general. So this should still be relevant. The title of the book, Carthage Must Be Destroyed, comes from a Roman senator whose name escapes me, but he was a very famous Roman senator. Every speech he gave in the Senate, he ended with Carthage must be destroyed. He had a speech about budget, he had a speech about taxes, he had a speech about domestic policy. He would end with Carthage must be destroyed. And ultimately, that's what the Romans did. They began to attack Carthage. They were... at one point, there were 3 phases of the Punic Wars. At one point, it looked like the Carthaginians would win. They would be victorious, but the Romans counterattacked, and the rest is history. But this book looks interesting. The next book is by Ernil Bradford. It's Hannibal. And Hannibal was the famous Carthaginian general who, as I mentioned, in the beginning of the war, the Carthaginians looked like they were winning. They had a genius military general, Hannibal, and this is basically his biography. And I'm sure it goes into the Punic Wars between Hannibal and the Romans. So again, this is another book in the same vein. Again, mostly focusing on the Punic Wars, which were Hannibal was successful initially. He crossed into Spain. Instead of attacking Italy and Rome by sea, he went to Spain through France, and then from Switzerland he attacked from northern Italy down to Rome. And he was famous for crossing the Alps with elephants, with African elephants. So a very genius, very strategic, well-known general, famous in military history. He was victorious, but again, it's a bit controversial. I haven't read the book. This is from what I know from reading other Roman histories. He had Rome by the neck. He could have destroyed them, but for some reason, he sort of backed off, and that allowed Rome to regroup and then to ultimately defeat his Carthaginian army. But after I read it, I'll probably give you guys a much better synopsis of the war. The Punic Wars. And then finally, speaking of the Punic Wars, this book is called The Punic Wars. It's by Nigel Bagnall. The subtitle here at the top is Rome, Carthage, and the Struggle for the Mediterranean. So again, a very dense text, but seeing if there's any photograph. No, not even any, no pictures. But I think at the back, okay, it's just a small map. But yeah, just what we were discussing. This will give you an overall picture of the Punic Wars. Again, a war fought in 3 stages. Don't quote me, I think the first one was like a Carthaginian sort of victory. The second one was inconclusive. The third one, the Romans finally defeated them and defeated them comprehensively. Went into Carthage and just destroyed the city-state and destroyed Phoenician culture as we know it. So that's this one. And then there's a small final one I found at a bookstore here. And I think this one, because Carthage is in the modern nation that is Tunisia, which is now an Arab, North African Arab country. This book is called Carthage, the Punic City. And as you can see, there's no photography, but it's like a graphic. And this is created by, because it's printed in Tunisia, I think it's created by a Tunisian publishing firm who were trying to show some of the legacy of, because the Tunisians are very proud of the Carthaginian history. But as you can see, the artifacts are very, very basic, and as you can see, most of the photos of the city are recreations of what we know, because it's not very, again, more graphics rather than photographs or actual. You can't go to Tunisia and see Carthage. You probably go to Tunisia and see more Roman artifacts than you'll see Carthaginian artifacts. But you know, there are still some evidence that we have, but again, perhaps not as much. Some masks. But so this one is a small sort of picture book, but it's got prose as well. So yeah, I think that's about 6 or 7 books. If I do 2 each a month for 3 months, that'll cover me for quarter 1 of Historathon. So yeah, I think quarter 1 will be Phoenician / Carthaginian history. I think I'm going to focus on that. And then for quarter 2, I'll make a video that's far ahead. I don't want to commit now. It's too early to commit now, but I guess you get the drift of Historathon and what it's all about. And I hope if you're watching this and you have a booktube channel, or if you don't have a booktube channel, doesn't matter. I hope you do participate, because it is a fun way to learn history with other history book lovers. There's a second event in 2026 which I would like to take part in. This event I found just watching BookTube. The channel is Jeff Reads History, and Jeff is another history booktuber. I was happy to find him. He makes very short videos, but he's very prolific. I just joined the Discord for his book club, which I'm about to announce, and he's very prolific there. And he's also on Substack, and he's quite prolific writer. Again, also a teacher. I think he was a history teacher for underprivileged kids in underprivileged areas. I mean, and I think he's a former teacher, but the majority of his career was in teaching. He has an interesting channel. A lot of the books he reads, I also find very fascinating. So I'm happy to find this channel. He's starting a new book club called the Slowburn Through History Book Club. And for this book club, he is doing what the title of the book club says, a slow burn through history. He wants to read history books, but he wants to read them slowly, a slow burn. He wants to take his time with these books. And so when I saw his announcement for this book club, I'll also try to link his channel and the video announcing the book club. If you're interested in joining, I might also link the Discord as well, just like I'll link the Discord to Historathon. This Discord I've actually joined. I haven't actually written anything. I'm new to Discord, but I'm gonna try to participate. Again, time difference is willing, but for the Slow Burn History Book Club, Jeff wants to read slowly, as I mentioned, and he doesn't want to, because he's reading slowly. There's not going to be too many books. He probably wants to spend. He wants to read 1 book a quarter, basically. So he's made some announcements about the later books, but for the first one he wants to start is to read this book, Battle Cry for Freedom, the Civil War Era. This is by James McPherson. This is a popular book. about the Civil War era, and I think it's part of the Oxford History of America series. I think there are 5 or 6 books. I might have 2 or 3 of them. I have this one. I found it in a used bookstore here in the Middle East. As I mentioned, the Civil War, although I consider myself a history buff, the Civil War, uh, just for me, it's very hard for me to understand. It just it's a very American war. All the wars were fought in America. American booktubers, American history booktubers, lovers of American history. They're very. This is their history, so they're involved in it. But for people outside the United States, the Civil War is always difficult to comprehend. I guess Americans have the advantage that they are based in America. You can go, and maybe they were in school. You can go to field trips and actually see the battlefields, and there are museums, and so that helps them understand the Civil War. But for somebody outside the United States, it's always a difficult. There's battlefields in like rural Pennsylvania or Virginia or whatever, so difficult to grasp. But according to Jeff, he says that this book, and he's heard that this book is the best introduction, the best uh, and easiest introduction to the Civil War, to understand the Civil War. So I'm hoping that this is the book that'll finally allow me to become a Civil War person, or to understand the Civil War better. It gets complicated with all the battles and the locations, etc., because they're, again, mostly rural areas in the United States. Um, I just For this book, I wanted to. Oh, what I forgot, it's written right over there, winner of the Pulitzer Prize. So this again comes highly recommended. So hopefully this is the book that'll allow me to grasp the Civil War. But there used to be a booktube event where a booktube thing where you would open to page 112 and read it. It was based on a French book prize where the book judges would open to page 112 of a book, read it, and then decide which book has the best page 112, and that book would win the prize. So I'm opening to 112 of this book. I'm going to read it and see. Maybe you guys will be interested. Maybe I'll be interested. Let's see. Okay. This Sonoran exercise was merely a warm-up for the real game. American attention in the early 1850s focused on the Central American Isthmus and a land bridge between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. A canal through these jungles would shorten the passage between California and the rest of the United States by weeks. Nicaragua seemed to offer the best route for such a canal, but the difficulty and cost of construction would be great. Meanwhile, the New York transportation tycoon Cornelius Vanderbilt established the Accessory Transport Company to carry passengers and freight between New York and San Francisco via Nicaragua. Attracted by the tropical climate, with its potential for the production of fruit, cotton, sugar, and coffee, other American investors began casting covetous eyes on the region. But the political climate discouraged investment. Nicaragua seemed in a constant state of revolution, having suffered through 15 presidents in 6 years before 1855. The temptation for filibustering there was almost irresistible. William Walker proved unable to resist it. Again, we're reading from the middle, so some of these names. Let's continue. In 1854, Walker signed a contract with the rebels in Nicaragua's current civil war, and in May 1855 sailed from San Francisco with the first contingent of 57 men to support this cause. Because Britain was backing the other side and American-British tensions had escalated in recent years, U.S. officials looked the other way when Walker departed. With financial support from Vanderbilt's transport company, Walker's filibusters and the rebel allies defeated the Legitimists and gained control of the government. So an American pretty much controlled Nicaragua. Walker appointed himself commander-in-chief of the Nicaraguan army as Americans continued to pour into the country. 2,000 by the spring of 1856. President Pierce granted diplomatic recognition to Walker's government in May. Just some random American guy comes in with about 60 troops and becomes the leader of Nicaragua and gets recognized by the U.S. president. Although Walker himself and half of his filibusters were Southerners, the enterprise thus far did not have a particularly pro-Southern flavor. By mid-1856, however, that was changing. While much of the Northern press condemned Walker as a pirate, Southern newspapers praised him as engaged in a noble cause. It is our cause at bottom. In 1856, the Democratic National Convention adopted a plank written by none other than Pierre Soule, endorsing U.S. ascendancy in the Gulf of Mexico, which now Donald Trump wants to change to the Gulf of America. Proponents of slavery expansion recognized the opportunities there for plantation agriculture. Indeed, Central America offered even more intriguing possibilities than Cuba, for its sparse mixed blood population and weak, unstable government seemed to make an easy prey. Yikes. Of course, the Central American republics had abolished slavery a generation earlier. But this was all the better, for it would allow Southerners to establish slave plantations without competition from local planters. A barbarous people can never become civilized without the salutary apprenticeship which slavery secured, close quote, declared the New Orleans newspaper that urged Southern immigration to Walker's Nicaragua. It is the duty and decreed prerogative of the wise to guide and govern the ignorant. Through slavery, the sooner civilized men learn their duty and the right, the sooner will be the real progress of civilization be rescued. Close quote. Okay, so open to a random page. Doesn't even discuss the southern United. Doesn't discuss United States. Discusses Central America, the country of Nicaragua, which links the Caribbean, the Atlantic with the Pacific. Of course, today there's the Panama Canal in nearby Panama, very close to Nicaragua. But at the time, Nicaragua was so. Okay, we get very broad history, North American history, but again, the slavery aspect was never far off. Never far off. And I know very little about the Civil War and slavery, but I think that's what the Civil War was about. The South, the southern states wanted to expand slavery into Western America. They wanted slavery in California and those kinds of places. They also wanted to go down to Mexico and Central America and the Caribbean and continue slavery. So again, okay, that was okay. I can probably do that. That for me, that's interesting. I look forward to reading this book in conjunction with Jeff's Slowburn through History Club. Again, I think he said this is going to take 8 to 12 weeks to read. He wants to read it slowly and discuss it and absorb it. So I'm in. Thank you, Jeff. Again, I'll link his channel below. There were two other books Jeff discussed in his video. His video is very short, but he did discuss that there are two other potentials he wants to read. One of them I don't have, but I might, if I do enjoy the book club, I might go ahead and purchase and read with them later in 2026. It's this book, The Warmth of Other Suns. The subtitle is The Epic Story of America's Great Migration, and it's by Isabel Wilkerson, and it's also winner of a Pulitzer Prize. Sorry about the glare. But if I'm not mistaken, this is about migration. This is migration after the Civil War up to, I think, the civil rights movements of blacks, African Americans, from the Deep South into the North, moving into the great industrial cities of New York and Chicago and Detroit and California and others. This is what this is about. So I don't know the exact timeline, but this is what I'm assuming from the picture. It looks like the 40s, the 50s, until those the new generations of African Americans in the urban, which African Americans were mostly rural people, they became urbanized, and then that led to the civil rights movement. So interesting American history. And then the third book he discussed, which he might want to do later, I do have this. I have it on Kindle, so I'll show it here on my iPad. Oh no, the glare! But it's Rick Atkinson, and it's The British Are Coming: The War of America, Lexington to Princeton, 1775 to 1777. Very sorry about the glare. I should have, maybe if I decrease the... Oh, I don't think that's going to help. Anyway, you get the idea. This is quite well-known book, very recent book. I think there's a part 2 now, and there'll be a part 3. But Jeff wants to read this one as well, but nothing is decided. The only one that's decided, this is the Revolutionary War, of course. The only one that's decided is the book about the Civil War. And that's what we'll be starting with from January 1st. So looking forward to this new book club. And again, I think Jeff would like the more the merrier. Again, I'll try to link to his channel, his video announcing, and then also links to the Discord, etc. If I can. That brings me up to my own personal reading, my own personal book event that I'm creating. Although I haven't really invited, I should have made it like a book club and invited people. But what I wanted to do here was 2026 is the 250th anniversary of the founding of the United States of America from 1776. It's been 250 years in 2026. So what I wanted to do is, again, a year-long event where I read American history. I've got a lot of American history books, and I need to make space. I don't need that many American history books, although I find American history very fascinating. I don't need that many American history books. So what I thought I would do is try to read some of these books and keep the ones that are really good, keep the ones, get rid of the ones I don't need. Hopefully that'll make some space for me. I'm looking up because my American history, I've got this bookshelf, but parallel to this, I've got another bookshelf of the same size, and my American history books are right here. So that's what I'm looking forward to do, reading books about American history and American society, basically. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to combine reading American history with Historathon. I think that just combine the two events, that's probably the smartest thing to do. The only issue with that is when we're talking about American history or modern or the United States of America or early colonial America, we're really, Christopher Columbus crossed in 1492. So the American history of modern United States is really starts, we can say, from 1500 onwards. So that's not until quarter two. Is it quarter? It's quarter three of History. That's all the way in July. So that leaves the whole first half, quarter one and quarter two, which is takes us up to 1500. So what I decided to do for that period is to read books about American society, domestic. I think I'm going to do the first quarter. I've got books about just contemporary American society. I don't know what to call these books. They're just books about America, domestic America. These I've picked up just along the way. I don't think I need all of them. I do want to read them, but I don't want to keep all of them. I can get rid of the ones that are, we'll see. If they're good, I'll keep them. If they're not, I could probably get rid of them. So just to give you an example of some of the books that I'll be reading, this is again the first quarter, for second quarter, and then for 1500 I'll start reading histories. It's a bit unfortunate because the books that Jeff recommend for his book club are history books. He's starting with the Civil War. I'm a bit OCD. I like to go in chronological order. I would have started with the British are coming. I would have started with the Revolutionary War, perhaps, and then maybe done the Civil War, and then gone to the more recent American, The Warmth of Other Suns. But it's Jeff's book club, so we're following his rules. So with these exceptions, those are exceptions. But then from 1500 for Historathon, I'll start reading, try to read in chronological order, maybe colonial America, and then like the Revolutionary War, then 19th century Civil War, and then 20th century America. That's the plan, at least. We'll see. But for the first two quarters, I want to read books again about American society, American culture. So, for example, this is a book by Colin Woodward. It's called American Nations. The subtitle is A History of 11 Rival Regional Cultures of North America. And the map, I don't know if it's very clear here, but it's cut up. You've got the North is First Nation. You've got Yankeedom, which is the Midwest and New England. You've got Greater Appalachia, the Midlands, the Far West, Deep South, the Left Coast. Basically, he divides America into regions and their different cultural aspects. Another book I have, this one, I don't know, I found it, I picked it up. It's called The Fractured Republic. It's by Yuval Levin, and the subtitle is Renewing America's Social Contract in the Age of Individualism. All I know is that Yuval Levin is mostly right-wing. I think he's a neocon right-wing. Yuval Levin is the Hertog Fellow at Ethics and Public Policy Center. Is the Hertog Fellow at the Ethics and Public Policy Center and founder and editor of National Affairs, a former White House advisor and congressional staffer, and a current contributing editor to National Review, very conservative neocon, and the Weekly Standard, also conservative right neocon. I think Levin lives in Maryland. These are neocon, right-wing conservatives pre-Trump. These books are a bit older, and I've had them for a while. I want to read them and get rid of them, but I don't know where he stands with the whole Trump MAGA right. But a lot of them initially, the Weekly Standard, National Review types were very anti-Trump at the beginning. I think they're slowly making peace with him, I guess, for career reasons. But I'll see what this is about. Another right-wing author, this is Mark Stein. This book is called America Alone, The End of the World as We Know It. And as you can see, there's the world, and there's all kinds of Islamic flags, and then there's one big American flag. Mark Stein is another right-wing neocon author, and in this book he says that Islam is going to take over. Well, they've already taken over the Middle East, most of Africa. They're getting into Europe, pushing into East Asia. The only bulwark against the rise of Islam is America. So this was more, again, older, post 9/11, sort of scaremongering, right-wing, but I don't need to keep it, so I'll read it and we'll see. If it's good, I'll keep it. The next book is Columbine. The author is not on the cover, but his name should be here. Dave Cullen. I think this book was very popular. And Columbine, again, most of my viewers are American. I think they know what Columbine is. It's actually not a happy story, but it was one of the first mass shootings of a high school in America, I think in Colorado, if I'm not mistaken. And this book is just that story, that sad story. Again, you get the drift of the book. It's American culture and society kind of books, because Historathon doesn't really begin with America until after 1500, with one exception, which I'll get to very shortly. The next book I'm hoping to read, John Goldberg, another right-wing neocon conservative, John Goldberg, Liberal Fascism. It's the hippie smiley face with a Hitler mustache. The subtitle is The Secret History of the American Left, from Mussolini to the Politics of Meaning. Again, what this neocon right-winger author basically does, he argues here that the modern American left, the left wing of America in the 20th century going forward, was actually influenced by fascistic right-wing Europe. That the left is actually the left in America is a holdout of the European fascistic right. The word Mussolini is there. I don't know how much it gets into Hitler. I'm tempted to look at the index and see how much Hitler is mentioned here, but I mean, he's there on the cover in a jokey kind of way, but that's the argument he makes. It's a very, very weak argument, and before this, I was just watching a bit of YouTube, and I typed this and saw what the reaction to this was. One of his neocon colleagues actually said, you know what, we appreciate the effort of this big book, but saying that the American left was influenced by fascistic right, the fascist movement in Europe was definitely right-wing, completely obliterated his argument. A very difficult argument to make. I'll give him a chance. I might read this first because I've got this ideological history. This is from last month. I read this book, Michael Burleigh's Sacred Causes, Religion and Politics from the European Dictators to Al-Qaeda. This is basically 20th century European ideological history about the rise of Nazism, fascism, communism, and the role in the church. Kind of, there might be some overlap with this, but we'll see. The next one I hope to get to this is a lot. I'm going to divide it over 2-3 months, maybe even 4, 5, 6 months. This next one is called A Generation of Sociopaths. How the Baby Boomers Betrayed America, by Bruce Cannon Gibney. And that's basically what it says. The baby boomers, basically what the author argues here is that the baby boomers are the reason for the decline of America and the end of the world, basically. Maybe we should read the cover copy just to get a better idea. It says, in a generation of sociopath, Bruce Cannon Gibney shows how America was hijacked by the boomers, a generation whose reckless self-indulgence degraded the foundation of American prosperity. A former partner in a leading venture capital firm, Gibney examines the disastrous policies of the most powerful generation in modern history, showing how the boomers ruthlessly enriched themselves at the expense of future generations. I mean, my parents are boomers. They're not American boomers, but they are baby boomers. The baby boomers were that generation right after World War II, up until the 60s. Acting without empathy, prudence, or respect for facts, acting, in other words, as sociopaths, the boomers turned American dynamism into stagnation, inequality, and bipartisan fiasco. The boomers have set a time bomb for the 2030s, when damage to social security, public finances, and the environment will become catastrophic and possibly irreversible, and when, not coincidentally, boomers will be dying off. So basically, the boomers just spend themselves crazy like drunken sailors, and then they're gonna die, and then they're gonna leave the tab for the future generations. The boomer stranglehold reached its apotheosis during the 2016 presidential election, with two dismal candidates representing the generation's ugliest traits. That part is true. The 2016 was Trump versus Hillary Clinton. Just two disastrous candidates. it was sickening to watch, really. And they're both baby boomers, Trump and Hillary Clinton. They're both supremely wealthy. Gibney, whose 2011 essay "What Happened to the Future Transfixed the Investment World," argues that younger generations have a fleeting window to hold the boomers accountable and begin restoring America, distilling deep research into a witty, colorful indictment of the boomers and an urgent defense of the once unquestioned value of society. A Generation of Sociopaths is poised to become one of the most controversial books of the year. This is older. This is in 2017. I'm just curious now. I want to go in the index and just read what's in the index. I'm really curious. I know this video is going long, but it's been a while since I posted, and I don't think I'll post. I think this will be my last video for 2025. So, okay. So the index AARP, the American Association of Retired Person, ABC Network, Accounting, Spiro Agnew, Samuel Alito, Amazon. Okay, America Online, AOL, Neil Armstrong. If we go to B, there's Baby Boomers, Jim Baker, Joanne Baez, Bank of America, Bell Stearns, Alexander Graham Bell, Bill Bennett, Boston Globe, Boston Tea Party, CBS, Challenger Space Shuttle, Winston Churchill. Okay, just all over the place. This looks... We'll see. I'll give it a read. I'll let you guys know. Just more books. We'll go quickly. This one, Jeffrey Sachs, The Price of Civilization. Jeffrey Sachs is... the subtitle is Reawakening America's Virtue and Prosperity. Jeffrey Sachs has become a bit infamous on YouTube now, arguing against America's stupidity. What he says is American stupidity of getting involved, supporting Ukraine against Russia, supporting Israel against Gaza and the Palestinians, supporting, pushing Taiwan against China. So it'll be interesting to see what he had. I've seen him on YouTube. It'll be interesting to read him in his own words. Another book, this one is called Nomad Land. It's by Jessica Bruder. And apparently it's become a major motion picture now. This talks about just the nomad, how Americans have become nomad. This old dream of having a white picket fence, 2 kids, a dog, a car, maybe 2 cars, and a Suburban. That dream is kind of fading away, and Americans are becoming nomads. I would have thought that this was a positive thing. Like, you're nomad, you live free, and you don't have a secure home. But I think it takes a negative view of this trend, that the American dream of the suburban home with the white picket fence and the wife and the kids and the dog, and that's dying. These are kind of downers. This is Susan Jacoby, The Age of American Unreason. Boy, I tell you, these books about the demise of America, they're popular. I think they sell. And then this one is an updated post-election edition, which I think the post-election edition is Obama. This is old. I've had this for a while. 2008, 2009. This is when Obama got elected. So A cultural history of the last 40 years. The age of American reason focuses on the convergence of social forces, usually treated as separate entities, that has created a perfect storm of anti-rationalism. I won't keep reading, but I think you get the idea. And then this one is by Anand Giridharadas, and it's The True American, Murder and Mercy in Texas. This was a 2014 notable New York Times notable book. Days after 9/11, an avowed American terrorist named Mike Stroman, seeking revenge, walks into a Dallas mini-mart and shoots Raisuddin Boyahan, a Bangladeshi immigrant, maiming and nearly killing him. 10 years after the shooting, Boyahan wages a campaign against the state of Texas to have his attackers spared from the death penalty. The True American is a rich, colorful, profoundly moving exploration of the American dream in its many dimensions. So I have this in my library. Good time to read it. And then the last book is actually a textbook from my history days. Oh my God, we're going to reach 1 hour with this video. A history textbook from my university days. I did a course on American history, modern American history, the second part. It's called A History of Our Time. The subtitle is Readings on Post-War America. And it's got a bunch of editors, but it's just key documents from the post-war America, the actual primary documents. So you've got part 1 is America becomes a world power. George F. Kennan, John F. Kennedy, Dwight Eisenhower, Joseph McCarthy. Part 2 is Politics and Culture of the Affluent Society. This is the luckiest generation, about the baby boomers, etc. Lyndon Baines Johnson. John F. Kennedy's inaugural address, that's in here, in this book. Civil Rights and Racial Justice. Brown versus Board of Education. Black Panther Party, Martin Luther King Jr., struggles over gender and sexual liberation, feminist movement, the women's rights movement, Chicano, gay revolution, sexual revolution, the Vietnam War. There's a letter to the draft board. William Jefferson, Bill Clinton's letter to the draft board is one of the primary documents. There's John Kerry, Vietnam Veterans Against the War. Part 6, Confrontation and New Limits. Watergate. The hostage crisis. And then part 7, the new era of conservatism. You've got Reagan, Newt Gingrich, what's his name? I have this Barry Goldwater. And then the United States and the world in the post-Cold War era. So this is the 90s. And then the changing shape of American society. That's up to 2000 and beyond. So mostly primary documents. Maybe I'll read these like one at a time, not just at one go. Like just read the primary American documents. Just quickly, I'm going to try to finish this in under an hour. This is getting embarrassing. I don't know how many people are going to watch this, especially now that I have so many new subscribers. But we're gone this far. I'll try to wrap this up. I had mentioned that American history really doesn't begin until after the 1500s. That means I can't really mix Historathon with my reading of the 250th anniversary of America, books that I want to read, the histories I want to read. However, of course, we all know that before the arrival of the Europeans in America, there was the native indigenous peoples who were living in the American landmass prior to 1500. So these two books I would like to read. This first one is a Reader's Digest, a coffee table sort of book. It's called Through Native Eyes. The subtitle is The Untold Story of Native Peoples. Sorry about the glare, but this book is it's a Reader's Digest. It's beautiful, just beautiful artwork all over. It's very hard because it's a big book. It's hard to show, but just all about just about Native Americans. And it just try to find a nice photo. This is, I guess, somewhere in the Arctic, but I bought this book in Canada, so it goes into Canadian Native American, but it also goes into Mexico, and then of course the United States, the continental United States, and probably Alaska as well. But I do remember at the beginning, yeah. So it's known the natives, we are pretty sure now, came from Asia, crossed the Bering Strait, and then just migrated throughout North America into South America. But um, just a wonderful, wonderful picture book. Maybe when I read it, I'll show more photos. But this is, and there's so much prose, and it's all about. It divides it into the different regions. Uh, the different regions and the natives in different regions. There was a map I'm looking for. Maybe it was in the other book, because I've got a second book. It's probably in this book. This one is called The Atlas of Indian Nations. And it's by Anton Truer. It's a National Geographic book. Again, another big coffee table book, but this one is more maps. It just got maps. This one is a map of the native languages, but it's also got very nice, more maps, but also very nice photography and just graphics. Really, really, again, it goes into detail. Like, this is the Southwest. The interesting thing I saw, again, I think the map was at the beginning. That gives you the, yeah, I think this is a better map to show you. So we know, excuse the size, we know that the Native Americans crossed the Bering Strait from Asia, and then just pretty much colonized the North American continent, going from north to south, all the way to the tip of South America. But then I think there was another map, if I can find it quickly. Yeah, I guess this one will do, because this book also divides it into geographical. The natives were also, there were different native tribes and different native cultures depending on geography. So the northeast and the west coast and the central plains and the southwest, they were all native, but they had different cultures. And it's very strange. If we go back to that first book I showed, if I can find it really quickly, just when I need to find it. Okay, it's here. American Nations. This one talks about America today. It's very similar. The current America, when you talk about the New Englander and somebody from the Midwest, I've got a lot of followers in the Midwest, subscribers. If you talk about people from California, talk to people from the South. If you compare modern America and the geographical distinctions, very similar to the Native American geographical breakup. Am I mistaken about this? It's very weird how it's come up to be almost the same. Am I the only person there's a thesis in that somewhere? So, yeah, again, so the Native Americans, I'll also read that before the Europeans arrive, before I mix this with Historathon. And then just two more books I wanted to discuss. My friends on BookTube have been encouraging me to get into. I had mentioned in one of my videos that maybe in 2026 I want to get into Russian literature. I don't know where to start. I have a friend on BookTube, Angelina. She has a BookTube channel, Books Do Things to Me. If I remember, I'll link her below, her channel below. She sent me this book, Russian Magic Tales from Pushkin to Platonov. It's a Penguin classic. Very kind of her to send this, and she sent it new, not even used. So I think I'm going to start this in January, to dip my toe in Russian literature, and then we'll see. I don't know if I can do all American history and Russian literature, those big classic Russian literature. It might be too much, but I'll try. But I'll start with this in January. Thank you, Angelina, for this. I haven't forgotten. We'll see. I don't want to commit now, but if I enjoy this and if time permitting, maybe I'll do Russian Lit 2026. It's a catchy name. I might use that. And then speaking of Angelina, a while ago we committed to doing that. I don't know if she's forgotten, but I haven't forgotten. It's we had decided to read Beowulf. This is the Seamus Heaney translation of Beowulf. I don't know how we got into discussing Beowulf, but we said we're going to read this. We decided February we're going to do a buddy read of Beowulf. So I haven't forgotten, Angelina. I hope you haven't forgotten. But that's in February. We've got time for that. So I just wanted to give Angelina a heads up. But yeah, okay, 1 hour later, I'll cut this up into parts because it's so long. But again, Historathon, Jeff's History Reading Club, my reading of America, books about American history in 2026 for the 250th anniversary of that country, dipping my toe into Russian literature, and then in February of Beowulf. That's the early part of 2026. I don't even want to go any further than that. And I don't want to go any further with this video because I've kept you too long. I'm going to wrap this up right at the 1 hour mark. Thank you for watching BookTube. Check the description for more information. Salute.